Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time for a Turning Point tonight.
Thanks for having me on.
So, in this newfound transparency movement with the government, obviously regarding the Epstein files, you've been fighting for transparency in a lot of different facets, specifically around Arctic frost, kind of trying to get all of the information out from what the Biden administration was doing when they were in power to yourself, the Trump officials. What does that look like going forward? And do you think this, again, newfound fervor for transparency in other facets will move on to all of the things that we'd like to see overall?
But what I can say is Trump's appointees, his secretaries, other people of his that he's nominated and have been confirmed, they are absolutely dedicated to full transparency. Mm-hmm. The problem we have is you still have deep state partisan actors burrowed in, doing everything they can to sabotage those efforts. And they can sabotage it 16 ways on Sunday. First of all, they just don't cooperate. They probably know where documents are, but they're not telling anybody. I mean, the fact that we found some pretty relevant documents, or we didn't find, but they found documents in burn bags in a skiff that nobody even knew about, that's a concern. So I don't know how many documents have been destroyed. My guess is quite a few have. I'd say the good news is, again, Trump's appointees, people like Bobby Kennedy, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they want this exposed. They want to get this information out. They want to find these documents, turn them over to Congress, as well as use them in potential criminal prosecutions. So that's the good news. But you still got the deep state that looks at any administration as this too shall pass. But the problem we have as Republicans is most of these are partisan leftists. They'll cooperate with, for example, the Biden administration. They don't cooperate very well with the Trump administration.
Now, what are and feel free to enlighten me, because I actually don't know. Are there any mechanics that can compel folks to do certain things, and are those at the disposal of senators? Is that the administration? How could that work from a compelling standpoint?
Well, as chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee Investigation, I have unilateral subpoena authority, so I can issue subpoenas. I have. It's very difficult to enforce those subpoenas, though. Generally, it's very difficult for us to get those things passed through the Senate, to go to court, to have the courts compel the testimony, as opposed to the FBI. They're using the judicial system, and they can use the courts to compel testimony right away from their subpoena. So it's different. We generally use those subpoenas. Nobody really wants a subpoena from Congress, so we kind of use that ability to hopefully get more voluntary cooperation. But the other good news about, for example, destruction of documents, you can destroy paper documents. In today's world, though, it's very difficult to destroy all the electronic copies and trail of those things. So, what, for example, these agencies need is they need computer scientists, people familiar with forensic analysis and audits. They also need a team of lawyers, which they're having a hard time staffing up because of all the lawfare engaged in by the weaponization of the Biden and Obama administration. It doesn't take a dictator very many people to hang in the public square before the population kind of falls in line. And that's, in effect, what the Democrats have done with their lawfare against other lawyers who've been disbarred or blackballed, or, for example, Judge Troops in Wisconsin. They're trying to destroy the man. It's really sick what Democrats are doing to him.
Well, and I guess that kind of leads into the other thing I'm curious about, just kind of gauging the political culture and the climate. Say, pretty damning things were to actually come out with the compliant media. Do you think the populace would actually believe any of it? Do you think it would make much of a difference? And sorry to be cynical here, but that's, my take on the political climate that we're currently in.
Well, have you seen the Washington Post return their Pulitzer Prize for the Russian collusion hoax? Have you seen them out, people that served them up all the false information? So no, I mean, the legacy of the corporate media, I mean, they're not reformed. They're still committed leftists and pretty much the communication wing of the Democrat Party. The good news is we do have alternate media. We have podcasts like this and other sources. So let's face it, the media is losing the trust of the American people in record numbers, quite honestly, and people are getting their news from alternate sources. Now, the problem you have with AI, with deepfakes, that kind of stuff, it is becoming very difficult to discern what is true and what is not true. We all have our biases. confirmation biases, that type of thing. So, we'll readily hop on something that we believe is true when it may not be. So it's really getting difficult in today's society to figure out, okay, what truly is the truth.
Yeah, it's we hope that the trust in the mainstream media goes faster than we could ever expect, but unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure how quick it actually can go. To transition, not my gender, just the topic. You've been an outspoken critic of Obamacare for obviously a number of years now. It got passed, so we found out what's in it, and what's in it turns out to be terrible. And the Affordable Health Care Act is ironically named because it made healthcare increasingly unaffordable. You've been a staunch critic of it. What are the kind of the next steps as we're starting to see the Affordable Care Act unravel in front of our eyes and really effectively help no one?
What I've always said, and this dates back to 2017 when everybody else was saying repeal and replace. Unfortunately, we didn't have a good replace.
Yeah.
I've always been saying, no, operative statement should be, let's repair the damage done by Obamacare and transition to a system that actually works. The reason I use that, first of all, when you say repair the damage, people go, well, what damage? Let me show you the ways. And I held a hearing last week assessing the damage done by Obamacare to, just the consolidation of these industries, making them less competitive, which drives up costs, the harm to disabled children with Medicaid Advantage adults, crowding them out of coverage, for example. And then, of course, just the skyrocketing premiums on the individual market, which they pretty well destroyed. They got rid of high-risk pools that could have been modified to take care of people with pre-existing conditions. But they forced that small percentage, about 7% of Americans, to bear the full cost of covering people with pre-existing conditions, one of the many reasons why premiums are skyrocketing, which they are hiding with the subsidies. So the people on the exchanges, they only know what their net premium is, which in general is, I think, overall about 10% of the gross premium. So American taxpayers picking up 90% of the Obamacare premiums. So people are seeing just a fraction of what those things cost. That's why Democrats are digging their heels in and insisting that we continue the enhanced premiums, which just cover that up even more and for more people.
Obviously the big kind of slogan was repeal and replace. You repeal and replace. You kind of hit on it a little bit earlier. Being a free market extremist, was why not just repeal? Do you think there is any political will to just repeal, or does there have to be something on the back end to effectively replace what's being lost, which is subsidies by the taxpayers?
People do want to see Americans get health coverage, right? They want them to get health care. They want people with pre-existing conditions to be covered. Now, sometimes you can set conditions on that, like you have to try and maintain insurance coverage. You can't sit there all your life not have insurance, then come in when you finally get sick. So, you need some protections that way. But that's something you have to provide. I think just politically, but I think morally as well. But there are ways of doing it, and that's why I say you utilize high risk pools. That's where everybody that is insured pays a small percentage in to cover those people in the high risk pools. People can move in and out of those. But again, the overall root cause is the third party payer system. Nobody knows what anything costs. They know what their insurance premiums are or their taxes are, but we've taken all the benefit of a free market system out of healthcare. We've also done the same thing in education. Two areas of our economy that we, by and large, don't like the results. Yeah, well, no kidding, because the free market guarantees three things: the best possible quality, the best possible level of customer service, and the lowest possible price and cost. Like, it's not perfect, but it's far better than anything controlled by government, which has been a disaster under Obamacare. So it's about returning consumerism into healthcare. That's things like health savings accounts. It's, you actually could bill reform on Obamacare, because Obamacare insurance is literally the catastrophic plans that insurance ought to be. But before Obamacare, those things were dirt cheap. Now those premiums are, they're literally selling insurance that really is insurance, because people can't even afford to pay for the deductible before they get into the insurance coverage. So again, Obamacare has been a complete disaster. The problem we have is the folks on the other side of the aisle, Democrats, are in a complete state of denial. I held my hearing assessing the damage of Obamacare. My ranking member, Blumenthal, said, where are the millions of people harmed by Obamacare? I don't see any in the hearing room. Then he went on to say, I don't know anybody harmed by Obamacare, to which I could point. Your own witness, this mom from Madison, is a victim. She lost her employer coverage care in 2016, went to a silver plan, $1,000 a month, couldn't afford it, had to go to a bronze plan, $14,000 deductible. They had healthcare issues, had to take out an $18,000 home equity line of credit. I mean, their own witness was a victim of Obamacare, and he's sitting there going, wow. I don't know anybody harmed by Obamacare. So they're in a complete state of denial. It's up to us to really point out, again, the damage done, and then focus on those free market reforms, really all revolving around consumerism, putting the patient in charge, making the patient demand for price transparency. Don't pass a law. You got to be transparent. No, make people pay for the first dollar coverages and have insurance be for the catastrophic instances.
Wow, that's actually a great explanation of what's going on. I really appreciate that. Senator Johnson, I asked this somewhat. I'm actually mostly serious about this, although I recognize it's somewhat of a funny question. The government was shut down for 44 days. 12% of my year, I did not have my beloved government. How can I go about getting a discount, a probated rebate for that period of time where I unfortunately did not have government?
Well, first of all, unless you were traveling by air, did you even notice?
I was going to say, I honest to God had no idea.
You got the same benefit from government when it was shut down versus when it was open. And I love the fact that Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, is pointing that out. So did you notice when you were shut down? Did you see any impact on education? Of course you didn't. What we hopefully can see, if we can start limiting the cost of government, how about maybe reduce deficits, less spending, not mortgaging our children's future to the extent that we are. So no, I mean, I think that's the danger Democrats really had in terms of pushing this shutdown. First of all, they stepped in it in terms of Obamacare. They've given us the opportunity to highlight what a miserable failure it's been, but also the impact, because the shutdown was run by a Republican president who wanted to minimize the pain. When Democrats are in charge of the administration, they're of course always going to blame Republicans for the shutdown, and so they're going to make it as painful as possible.
Yeah,
you shut down the things that people actually value, like parks, the Trump administration tried to make it as painless as possible. That's why I think most people didn't even, they had no impact from the shutdown until it got to the air traffic controllers and air travel. And then let's face it, that's when government opened back up.
Well, yeah, and that's when Democrats had to capitulate, which is exactly what I think was intended. So as far as my 12% income tax rebate, I'll take that as a maybe, but probably not.
We're 38 trillion in debt. Sorry, we got to keep that.
Yeah, don't remind me. That just it makes me cry a little bit inside. Senator Ron Johnson, thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.